All right, Zoe. So you were on Escaping Twin Flames on Netflix. If you would introduce your role and what that entails.
Yeah, so I was the supervising story producer for Escaping Twin Flames. I worked on the show with Cecilia and Inbal and the whole team. Not from the very, very beginning. Cecilia and Inbal and Morgan were working on this for a long time before it got to the point where they were ready to start hiring the rest of the team. But I started on the show in November 2022 through when we finished it in summer 2023.
Oh, wow. That is good to know. Oh, did you have to keep track of schedules for cast and crew?
Did I have to keep track of schedules for cast and crew? So like basically that we had a team of producers, right? So it's like I was the story producer, Morgan was the supervising producer, Nadine was kind of like our field producer, associate producer. So when it came to like the actual filming and being on set and planning all of the shoots, Morgan and Nadine were really spearheading that. I was kind of more on the story end, and that's why I didn't attend your interview in person, and I didn't attend most of the interviews in person. I only attended the days that we filmed in New York City because I live in New York City. The rest
Oh,
of the filming, I was kind of remotely attending the interviews via Zoom and kind of listening in as Cecilia was asking questions, and kind of helping the team remotely. So when it came to more of the scheduling stuff, yeah, that was definitely more Morgan and Nadine doing all of that.
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, Nadine will eventually be on here. I just haven't asked her yet.
Yes. I'm hanging out
Um,
with her next weekend, so I'll tell her to
yes, yeah,
come.
tell her to expect that right now I'm just waiting because this is a process of waiting for guests and then
Yeah.
planning, then getting the time right. Doing that, once I get that scheduled, then I move on to the next person to asking. So she's
Yeah.
up
Yeah, she
very
moved to New
soon.
York. So now that she lives in New York, I get to hang out with Nadine. But the rest of the team was mostly LA based. So something that was interesting about the behind the scenes of the show is that it was really just me and Mimi, one of our editors, who were New York based. And then some of the kind of more office people from ITV, the production company that helped make the show in New York. And then everyone else was based in LA. So we had like a very bi-coastal work team, which workflow with our team, which was really interesting. And it ended up working out really well. Like I think we were all a little nervous at the beginning, like with the time zone difference, and but it was great. I mean, I was able to get extra work done in the morning before everyone woke up, but a lot of people woke up extra early on the West Coast too. So and then I worked late. We put in a lot of hours, all of us.
Which, yeah, definitely a whole lot of hours.
Yeah.
Just figuring out my schedule, like at least my back and forth. Like I talked to Nadine, Morgan, actually Cecilia, and Inbal the most when it came to not only scheduling, but figuring out things and redoing interviews like this. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, it was a long process of just figuring that out because I'll never forget Cecilia saying, it was really hard getting you scheduled for this. She said that in person in LA.
It was hard, scheduling on production is always really hard. There's just so many moving parts. There's so many people's schedules. Then like the production company that you're working with has limitations with their scheduling and, so it always happens. But it was great that we were able because the day we interviewed you, we also in that same trip we were able to do a few interviews, which was important. It's always good when we can kind of group interviewees together when we're scheduling. That's always a thing that makes things a little easier for us.
Well, I personally like that it was Sarah Berman. That was the other one. Well, Morgan already pretty much said that in our interview. She did a double check of Sarah Berman, your day, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you and Sarah were one day, and then either the next day or a couple days later, it was Drea. And
Oh,
because I think, yeah, they interviewed Drea like right around when they.
I didn't even get to see Drea. Darn it.
Yeah.
I've only seen Drea through words and YouTube. That's it. And a little bit on our docu-series. Let's see. Oh, here's one that you may be able to answer. I don't know yet. But how did you get a feel for telling our stories through the docu-series?
Oh man, that's such a hard question. I mean, this story, as soon as I met Cecilia and Inbal and they kind of started telling me about the twin flames story, and just like I started learning about everyone that they'd been speaking with, all the different survivors of the group. It was just kind of like almost like diving into, I don't know, like an internet black hole. You know, when you're like Googling something, you're really interested in it, and you just like keep reading more articles and you keep looking at more stuff. And I'm sure a lot of viewers after watching our doc had that experience. They were so interested after the doc that they started looking up TFU. They started looking up Jeff and Shalia. They started looking up, everything they could about the group and the story. So my first couple of weeks on the show, that was what I was doing. I was just reading as much as I could online. I was kind of like lurking around the internet, looking at all of Jeff and Shalia's, pages and TFU's website, speaking with Cecilia and Inbal about all the interviews and conversations they had had with you guys, and kind of reading their notes from all of those interviews and conversations. And actually, when I came onto the show, they had already interviewed Elle and a few of the other survivors. So I watched all of their interviews, and that kind of helped me get into kind of understanding the world of this story and the world of TFU. And there's just so much there. I mean, you probably saw in the series, we ended up interviewing, I think, almost 20 people total.
Wow.
If you include like Yanya and Sarah Berman and the moms and stuff. And each of those 20 people had so many interesting things to add in their perspectives of, their experiences with TFU, or their experiences with their loved ones entering TFU. And really, in order to tell this story, we really just had to kind of like listen to each individual person's stories and start understanding how they all intertwined together, and basically start making a chronology and a timeline so that we could kind of understand the history of Jeff and Shalia, how they started, who were the early members of the group that we were interviewing, and when did people enter, when did people exit, and how did things escalate and when, and just kind of understanding the chronology of everything and how it related to all of you guys that we were interviewing. I don't know if I answered your question.
I feel like you did. The question was just, how did you get a feel for telling our stories through the docuseries? I feel like you answered that really well.
Thanks. I'm like so not used to being interviewed. I'm like, oh my God, crazy.
Well, you're
Um,
doing awesome, Zoe.
oh,
I like
thank
how
you.
you did that because you answered it clearly and concisely. I'm not used to having people always answer that way because I personally need clear and concise, and I don't always get that.
I know that life, with, with all of our interviews with everyone, a big part of my job is kind of like, how can I get the best moments of each person's interview and make sure that those moments are included? And how can, if someone told a 10-minute story, how can I get the essence of that 10-minute story in a shorter version that we can use? Because obviously we can't use the whole 10-minute story. We had 3 episodes where every second really counted. And so, yeah, there was just so much story here. And of course, there was so much that hit the cutting room floor too. So many amazing, interesting, fascinating details that we just didn't have the space to include in the series, but still lives in our minds if we can hopefully ever be able to tell more of this story. So
I hope we can. I said this to Morgan too, but because you guys won't know, but I really hope that there's a season 2 like The Vow did, where Jeff and Shalia, well, Morgan stated it first in her interview, which I hope she lets me keep that in there. But of Jeff and Shalia behind bars, I said I would personally love that if we had a season 2. And I told her, which I'm going to tell you too, don't confirm or deny right now. This is just a hope, not
mhm.
any word on it for either side.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
this is still a very live and active story, which means that the story isn't finished yet. And when the
no,
story is not finished yet, that means that something else is bound to happen. And if we're able to capture that and, be able to tell the end of the story eventually, that would be awesome. We would all love that. Everyone on the team would love to be able to do that.
it would be amazing.
Yeah.
And even just backpedaling a little bit, like when you talked about the interviews, I know I didn't let Cecilia and Inbal actually start recording me until like the 4th time that we talked.
Yeah.
I didn't allow the recording to happen at all. I told them each time, nope, not comfortable with that. And
I
they
mean,
actually listened, which I really appreciated that. They
yeah,
didn't record. but they did write down what I was saying because Inbal would ask me to repeat myself sometimes.
Mhm.
But yeah, they respected that and just came up with a different way of doing it.
That was really important to all of us, like understanding that each and every one of you has been through a lot, before speaking with us. And a lot of what you've been through involved being on camera in a Zoom call or
Yeah.
and every project I work on, whether it's Twin Flames or, every documentary I work on, the most important thing is making sure that your contributors are comfortable and that you can keep that trust in that relationship and build that trust. And Inbound Cecilia are amazing at that. And it was just really great because, this was such a sensitive story. Each and every one of you had experiences, and by talking to us about them, you were kind of reopening, wounds and things like that. And we knew that it was going to be emotionally difficult for you all. So it was really important to us as much as we could to make sure that we were providing a safe space for you guys and, following along with what you were comfortable with as we put everything together.
Yeah, which was appreciated too during the process of that, because at least my personal experience with the production company that Amazon had, it felt rushed, that they
Uh,
just wanted to, like, I gave them a little, not as much as I gave you guys of my story. I gave each only a little. And I tested both out just to see who was being honest and who just wanted filming, who did not. And in the long run, it showed that you guys weren't about the filming. You were truly about respecting and telling the story, and yet still making sure there is boundaries there of the
yeah.
story to allow us to stay safe legally, and
Oh,
not just caring about, oh, we want to get you on film. And Amazon's production company proved otherwise, that they just cared about getting me on film. Nothing else really mattered.
oh yeah. We want to protect you guys at all costs. Like, it's you guys have already been through a lot. And then I know that certain survivors that we interviewed had already been interviewed on other, podcasts and things like that and had bad experiences there. So it was important to
Yes.
us to not do that and make sure that, like, this was going to be a mutually beneficial thing, that you guys were going to be happy to be interviewed on this and that you were going to feel good about the project. And
I know I personally did, because I wasn't originally planning to come out as being in a cult. Like, everyone around me, at least, didn't find out until I said, oh, hey, I have to take off work for this. So I didn't give them in depth of what it was. All I said was a docuseries from the cult I was in. But for me, that was a huge step, because that was my first step in really opening up from the fact I was in a cult and I hadn't opened up to any job. One was a new job at the time for me. Now is going into my second year, but that was still, I can't lie. So doing that was not easy for me, at least because
oh,
of how people at least view cults and misuse the word cult, because it is misused a lot. Like, I didn't start until recently really educating and calling out some influencers that go, yeah, I'm a cult leader. And I would say, be careful with that. You could actually be one.
mhm.
Because even when you're joking, which people don't get that, even as an influencer, yes, you might mean it as a joke, but you could ultimately be one as an influencer. There's so many influencers, so many YouTubers out there that are, in fact, cult leaders. So joking about it doesn't help in the education department, and honestly doesn't make you look too smart. That's how I
Yeah.
feel about that personally.
No, I agree. It's like it's a serious word. And people will be like, Soul Cycle is a cult, or something like that. And it's like, actually it's not. It's just a very addictive fitness, company or whatever it is. But yeah, no, I agree with you. People should not be throwing the word cult around like that.
Or cult leaders, or because it is so misused. I know there is, which I highly recommend you read Cultish by Amanda Montell, but there
Oh,
are,
let me
and
write that down.
going to continue saying that highly,
I
because
want to
she's
read.
linguistic, and there are parts of like cycling that is an actual cult, because it is within the language of cult, which to me is a really like Amanda Montell was in How to Become a Cult Leader on Netflix. She was interviewed for that because she does have that knowledge, that linguistic knowledge. That's what I love about her very much. Not only is
Right.
she an author, but she's educating. She's using her linguistics for good of here's words. Like she doesn't call them like salad words. I'm trying to think of what she
Oh yeah,
says the lingo
word
is.
salad. Yeah.
She has other words for what that is and explaining kind of the ins and outs of a cult. Like my sister is the one who originally bought me Cultish just for
Mhm.
me to better understand my experience at Twin Flames Universe. This was before, way before even getting interviewed for the docuseries, but
Mhm.
that was my first education. And then second came Lala Lynch's Take Back Your Life. But
Yeah.
not that I'm advertising. But yeah, she's really good at linguistics and just explaining the ins and outs. Like as a third party, she does a really good job, just like you guys did a really good job of explaining the story. She does it through her actually some survivors. She kind of has a similar aspect to Dr. Lynch, the way she does her book of survivor stories. She has a couple in there, and then some of her own experiences too. And it's just great. I know she was on a little bit culty, but I haven't listened to her episode yet.
I want to read that. I think, it really is fascinating. Because a lot of these tactics that cult leaders use are very subtle. So it's interesting to have like someone kind of break it down in kind of like an educational way like that.
Yeah, she
We wish
does.
I wish that we could have interviewed more cult experts, for our show, but we had to cram so much into 3 hours. It was tough.
Yeah, but you guys did great, honestly. And who you had on was perfect since you had rep for trans, and
Mhm.
that's a huge deal. I even said this with Morgan, but it's a huge deal, especially in a time period where there's so much legislation and things against specifically trans and just the community itself, the LGBTQIA slash queer community itself. It's
So that
nice to have some true backup of those voices in it itself in the docuseries, which I appreciate, or else I would have not agreed to it anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
Knowing
that was
that.
a priority for us, was making sure that, we approached that storyline with the sensitivity and, respect that it deserved. And that was a really, really challenging part of the series, of making sure that like we really are doing this the right way, and the way that is not going to hurt the trans community. Like we were really afraid that like somehow something from the show could end up hurting the trans community. And it was a huge priority for us to make sure that we prevented that from happening. Um, so yeah, we worked hard to make sure that we could interview Dr. Adair, include as much of his interview as we could in the project. And also just to have, you and Angie specifically kind of telling your stories from your points of view, and just making sure that we could include your perspectives, the mom's perspectives, and Isaiah and Ray's perspectives through their videos that they had posted, and just allow everything to unfold the way that it really unfolded in real time without kind of commenting on it, but also making sure that Dr. Adair could make a few comments just to be like, if you're drawing these conclusions from this, you should think about why, that was important to us.
And he did a good job of, well, saying, well, if you truly felt like at least I'm trying to voice without voicing myself since I'm not trans, so I don't feel I should speak unless I'm having someone who actually is. So I like repost a lot on TikTok voices that do speak on the topic. The
Mm-hmm.
most I do speak on is having that experience that I did have, knowing in my heart that, which is quite the opposite of if you are trans,
Yeah.
and knowing in my heart that I wasn't this and that it didn't feel right. And for someone who is trans and truly this, you don't have signs like Jeff and Shalia teach in their teaching, signs in the outside world pointing to the fact you're a male or a female, so divine feminine, divine masculine. You don't have which I like that did go over. I'm glad that the actual video, little pieces of it, which funny enough, they're starting to show a little on YouTube, little pieces more of it on.
Mm.
So they're really just not helping themselves. And
Those, yeah, those,
what?
the divine feminine and divine masculine e-course taught by Jeff and Shalia was really one of the most crazy, pieces of archive that we had to kind of show their influence, in terms of gender identity on members of the group. And your moment in the series, Jessi, was so powerful. The moment where you say that you realized, like, this isn't me, like that is such a powerful moment in episode 3, and it's so important because, like, by you sharing that experience and Angie sharing her similar experience, it's important for the audience to see, like, how strong the influence was becoming, that you guys were second guessing this part of yourselves, and that you had this moment of realization. I think it was really, really powerful moment in our series.
Feels good to know that. I got a lot of, honestly, in my inbox, a lot of people saying my mom rocks and stuff like that, and then saying, glad you're out, in that exact order. I had a lot
I
in my
mean,
inbox all over social media. I still get it. It's not as frequent as when it first came out, but yeah,
yeah, I
it's
mean, it's
nice
because
to hear that.
the viewer can see kind of the contrast between your experience when you spoke to your mom and Debbie and Maxine's experiences with, their kids who were in TFU. The conversation may have started the same, and it had different outcomes, but yeah, it's a really powerful moment in the series. So we're really glad that that you were willing to share that with us, because we know it was a lot emotionally to kind of go back to that place there.
Yeah, well, and a lot of just being in the docuseries is reliving. Like, I explained this recently on one of my TikToks that even right now I'm still reliving a lot of moments and then remembering again.
Yeah, it was
But
interesting with a lot of you guys who we spoke to in the series, just the way that your memories were impacted, because I mean there's so many reasons why your memory could have been impacted, but some people remembered more than others. Other people, while we were in the interview live on camera, we could kind of tell that they were starting to remember things that they had been pushing away. Yeah, it's really crazy how much, being in that kind of mental state that you were in while you were in TFU was able to affect your memory and things like that.
yeah, actually, I recently wrote, which this part will need to be deleted, at least my saying what I'm saying. This is me talking to my editor. uh, of In my memoir, I just recently wrote saying that peace felt like nothing. So that's what Jeff taught. This peace feels like nothing, and so every time you felt nothing, which is literally you literally aren't feeling anything. So someone could say you suck and you won't feel a thing, or cuss you out like he always does. I guess maybe this part can stay in. But I wrote that in there as even a question mark of peace feeling like nothing. Really? Like, I'm writing similar to Sarah Edmondson. I'm almost finished listening to her memoir, but I liked the way she wrote things, so I'm allowing myself to do as I am now, which is remembering back and then being present where I am now, because that's the way Sarah Edmondson wrote and the way India wrote hers. Because when I'm writing a memoir, or writing a specific way of a book, I like to listen to stories that are similar.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's I love reading memoirs. It's one of my favorite genres of book to read, and I'm always like, how do people remember this much about their lives? I always feel like if I had to write a memoir and like tell stories from my childhood, I'm like, I don't know how I could like re-access some things, because it's hard to remember that far back. Crazy.
can be. Well, with me, there's like certain trigger words, even as I'm writing, that I don't realize are trigger words until after I write it in my memoir. And
Yeah.
then I go back there. And sometimes I force myself to continue writing it until it's written. And then I back off and let myself have nothingness for like an hour or two for mental health purposes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's interesting, like within TFU, there's kind of like your own lingo within the group. And
correct.
some of that are words that you would normally use, like the word mirror, and then
Yeah,
suddenly the word mirror can become a complete other thing than just a household object in your home. And there was a lot of interesting moments of interviews with you all where you just kind of talked about the post TFU recovery. This didn't end up in the show, but a lot of you all mentioned this, that like you had your brains needed to almost, you need to rewire them back because there were certain words and certain things that just had such a strong attachment to TFU after you were out. And yeah, it's really scary how much influence TFU was able to have on your minds in that way.
very much so. Like, leveling up, which this took me forever, still is a partial trigger word for me, not a big trigger word anymore. But level up used to be like if you were to get sick. Jeff and Julia use that you're leveling up in your reality. So you're going to the next level. And I always, for a long time, until I entered the gaming world, would only think of leveling up as I'm going the correct direction. I'm healing. And now, after at least almost 4 years, 3 or 4 years of being out, I'm now, it's pretty recent, able to think of it correctly, of using that word correctly, of level up, of in a game. You're leveling up.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. That means that's progress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of that because you're the words. And that also falls into Amanda Montell, linguistics. But
Yeah.
oh, this one you might be able to answer, but we're gonna first go to the more important one, which you don't have to answer if you're not comfortable with. But with the way you've been talking, I think you will be. Let's see. You already answered that one. Never mind. Here's the important one, and then we'll go to the other one. Do you feel Twin Flames universe, aka Jeff and Julia, are a danger to those who follow their teaching?
Yeah. I mean, we spoke to, like I said, almost 20 of you, and that's what all of you said. And I think we displayed in our series a chronology of events that happened, and we showed a lot of evidence. And in our series, we fact checked everything. Every single sentence, like everything that was said in the series, we double checked, triple checked. And all of you guys corroborate each other with a lot of these claims. So I'd say, yeah.
And then were you, let's see, no, that's the one you already answered. Do you have a favorite moment from the series?
Oh, that's a hard question. I feel like the whole series is like our baby. Everyone on the team, it's like the whole series is like our baby. Um, I mean, favorite moment.
If you have multiple, go with multiple. Or if you don't, that's okay too.
Hmm.
Whatever it is.
I could say I have maybe a favorite episode.
There you go. Perfect. That counts.
I feel like episode two is kind of like my baby in the sense that I worked more on that episode than one and three. We all worked on all three episodes, but episode two was kind of like this crazy puzzle because like, there's a beginning and there's an end, but the middle, there's so much stuff in there, so much story to tell. And episode two, we rearranged everything in the episode, so many different orders, and we tried so many different things. And I'm really proud of like how it turned out, because I think that in episode two, you can see all of the escalation happening, and you can kind of, the average viewer can kind of start sensing the danger. And especially when you get towards the end of episode two, and we kind of reveal the divine feminine and divine masculine concept. Yeah, we worked really, really hard on that episode. We worked really hard on all the episodes, but I would say episode two was a labor of love.
I feel like just the focus on the family in general, like the family aspect that was so focused, which I guess technically in Seduced it was too, but I feel like Twin Flames was taken a little different direction just because we did have this concept of, which isn't a new one. I do want to say that because it is true. It's not new. Divine feminine, divine masculine, and Jeff and Shlia didn't come up with most of their terms that they have, like harmonious union. Jeff says he coined that term, which I feel like, well, allegedly coined that term. I feel like he just looked for a word and used it because union has always been there. Like if you go to, I think her name is Mary Prophet, she's the first one to do the concept of twin flames. Like when I first got out, I started doing research on that so I could write my very first article, and I happened to not do the writing of that, but I had done research on it. I just didn't do an article on it of Mary Prophet because she does have a Church of Union too. She did the first Church of Union. So on top of that, their Church of Union isn't a new idea either. That's taken directly from Mary Prophet. But yeah, that's just a fun fact from my own research.
I mean, there's a lot of concepts within TFU that are borrowed from other places. It's really interesting. Like the mirror exercise was also borrowed from somewhere else.
They took
So
from multiple places of what I've
yeah,
heard, because I know Sarah Edmondson said one place, and then I know another ex-member has another place that it's from. And then there's like 3 different resources that use the mirror exercise. There's one book that I really want to get that apparently directly has it in there that was published, which technically this author could sue on copyright alone if it's actually in there. That's why I want to read the book. But
yeah.
they wrote it like in the 1990s,
Hmm.
and Jeff and Shalia didn't publish their book until 2017 or 18. I don't know the exact time period, and I'm not going to look to see, but it's 2017 or 18. 2017 or 18. I'm going to go with 2017 because that's when they started the whole online stuff.
Yeah,
But
that's why I would guess that too, if I was guessing.
yeah, that's my guess.
I used to have all this information in my brain, Jessi, but now it's been 8 months since I finished working on the show. The
Oh, wow.
information is slowly draining out.
It's okay. I have no concept of time, so it would feel like just yesterday for me. But let's see. Oh, I like this question that I wrote that I didn't realize I wrote. What is your favorite part of being a supervisor story producer?
That's a good question. I mean, I really love storytelling. I love storytelling, and one of my favorite parts about working in documentary is we get to meet real people and help them tell their stories like in their own voices. And the best part about telling this story is that this is a very active, TFU is active. All of you that we interviewed were deeply affected by this, and we felt like through telling this story, we were going to be able to make an impact, and we were going to be able to educate people, but also we were hoping that we were going to be able to like really make an impact on kind of what is actively happening. It's hard to tell right now what that impact has been since the series has come out. But I think it is clear that we've had some sort of impact. And everyone on the team, we really felt for all of you survivors and really wanted to be able to help you amplify your story so that we could make an impact. And I think that's what happened. So that was very exciting.
Know that we're all doing a lot behind the scenes that people don't know about, but we are doing stuff behind the scenes to continue to fight and
Yeah.
to at least take down one of 10,000 cults that are active today.
Mhm.
Since that, I like that that statistic was there for all 3 episodes at the end. 10,000 cults going today that aren't even taken down. And I bet a large percentage of them are probably online influencers, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I have a super long question for you because I wrote multiple ones at once. But I kind of feel like you already walked me through a typical day of being a supervisor, story producer.
Yeah, like the main part of my job was helping tell the story and working with the team on a daily basis and kind of, because obviously the amount of information we had is overwhelming. We had 20 interviews that were each 3+ hours long. We had almost 1,000 hours of Jeff and Shalia's videos. We had all these screenshots and other evidence that were sent to us. And when you have that much information and you're trying to put it into 3 hours, it's really overwhelming. And a big part of my job as supervising story producer was just kind of, on a daily basis, like sitting with the team, delegating to each editor, delegating to our APs, okay, today I think we're going to focus on Baby Grace. Jessi, our amazing archival producer, was digging through all of this footage, and on every day I would kind of check in with everyone and I'd be like, this is kind of what the editors need. We're looking for moments about Baby Grace today, especially any moments where they talk about Baby Grace being their third twin flame or something like that. Like that's just an example, but we wanted to show every part of this story. In addition to having your interviews, we wanted to be able to show evidence, to back up what we're saying. So if we're in the Baby Grace section, we want to find as many videos of Jeff and Shalia saying out of their own mouths kind of the prophecy of Baby Grace and kind of what's going on with Baby Grace. And similar with there was a lot of kind of like mirroring, for example. Like we wanted to find like a good mirror exercise video. If we're in Angie's part of the story, we want to find good moments of Angie in the classes, speaking to Jeff and Shalia. And so I was kind of the person kind of communicating with all three of our editors, all of our APs of like, all right, this person's working on this, that person's working on that. Like, can you find this for that person? Like, so it was a lot of keeping the whole story in my brain, figuring out where to focus so that our small team, our small but mighty team, could kind of have some direction of where to start with or what to do today with all this overwhelming amount of footage. And we also had this, and this was like a group effort. We would have meetings every day where we were just kind of all sitting in the meeting and working on the story. But we had like a storyboard. And we moved around things. So we mostly told the story chronologically. We tried to kind of start with how did people join TFU? What is a harmonious union? And we kind of had to like bubble out, but we had to in each episode kind of define and explain for the audience like all of these different parts of TFU and what they meant so that the audience could understand like what is coaching, what is mirroring. And we had this crazy storyboard where we just put everything in different orders, and it would be like mirrorings in episode 1, what's another example, Church of Unions in episode 2, Baby Grace is in episode 3. And sometimes we would move these cards around because even though we were telling the story chronologically, all 20 of you that we interviewed entered and exited at different points in time, and we did our best to kind of keep the chronology as much as we could. But if Keely is at the beginning of episode 1, Angie was in TFU long before Keely was, but we didn't introduce Angie till episode 2 because we decided that was a better spot to introduce her. So just things like that. A lot of rearranging. That was a complete team effort. We had all these meetings spearheaded by Inbound Cecilia where we just talked through, I think this should be earlier. I think this should be later and why. And then, of course, we changed things about 100, 200 times till we landed on the final order of all of the different sections within the 3 episodes. So it was really a challenging story to tell, but because there was so much story and it was all so interesting, and we were like, okay, how can we get the average person sitting on their couch to understand all of these concepts, all of this lingo of TFU in 3 hours? Like, how can we explain everything so it all makes sense? That was a big part of my job, was figuring out how to do that.
I like that. I love that there was an actual storyboard because that's what I imagined in my head that you guys were doing. So you just validated what I imagined in my head.
Yeah. So the LA team got to meet in the office together every day, but me and our editor Mimi were in New York, so we were always remote. But the LA team, like Avery, our AP, wrote down on index cards like every single thing. And they had like an actual bulletin board and were like physically moving all the cards around. But for us remote people, we had like a online version of the storyboard that we were always moving things around.
I really like that. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. That makes me love the fact that we had our that the docuseries happened in general. And I know that I was also before Keely ever entered in either. I was already in TFU before Keely.
Yeah, and
part of TFU.
I think Drea was the person we interviewed who was the earliest member.
Yes, that would make sense.
We didn't even introduce Drea till episode 2. So just figuring out when to introduce everyone and what points of the story was each survivor's input going to have the most impact and be the most powerful. And yeah, figuring all of that out.
I liked finding out about the Holy Grail because I had only heard about that because I had made it into actually the meeting that you guys showed, the executive meeting. that was one of my first meetings into the executive team, was that meeting. So it was interesting to see it because that flooded back that memory. Because I had made it to that, not to the inner circle, because the inner circle is, at least part of our executive training is, unless you're in the inner circle, so everyone there that you saw was in harmonious union, but everyone else, we get to watch the recordings, but we're still a part of it. And I also had that day a session with a coach that was in that meeting, but I'm not going to say her name because I don't
There
want to.
was so many different meetings. I mean, there's the classes, there's like the two different versions of the classes, then there's the life purpose classes, which is like a whole other class. Then there was these coaching meetings. I mean, there was just so much to sort through. The Holy Grail was awesome.
Love that. It
Yeah,
rocked.
I mean, they recorded in TFU, they recorded, and we were lucky to be able to have a lot of those recordings and be able to use them to help us tell the story.
Yeah, and for the potential of authorities to do their job.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there again. I already did that with Morgan, but I think Morgan and I were a little more spicy with the way we did it.
Well,
But
hey, our team, we were a very investigative team. Documentary is investigative. We are similar to journalists. A lot of the same type of research that Sarah Berman was doing, before publishing her article, and the fact checking and all of that stuff. Like, we have to do the same thing. We have to be very diligent about fact checking and making sure we have evidence to back up our stuff. And we've got a lot of stuff. So whoever
1,000
needs,
hours, to quote
yeah,
Inbal from the Collider interview, just to be
yeah,
precise in my quoting.
it was a team effort for us to sort through that. Of course, like, how could any single person watch 1,000 hours? We only had such a short amount of time to make the show, but we really divided and conquered. Everyone on the team was scrubbing through videos and looking through screenshots every chance that we could. And we used the help of AI a little bit with that too, which helped us find some things. I did a lot of digging on Jeff and Shalia's public YouTube channel, and there was a lot on there. What was very interesting about the evidence we had was a lot of it was totally accessible. I'm sure since the series has come out, I wouldn't be surprised if certain things were kind of deleted and from places. But when we were making the series, we were able to go on Jeff and Shalia's public YouTube channel and look at all those videos, and that was stuff that they had publicly put out there. So
Public domain, very important. Just like Strawberry Shortcake and Dick Wolf both have a
yeah,
lot of public
yes,
domain stuff
well,
too.
we were very happy to be able to see that there was already other whistleblowers from TFU who had uploaded things like Strawberry Shortcake and Dick Wolf, and those videos were useful for us as well. So that was great.
They're very helpful, and the fact that other YouTubers can use them too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that the Fresh Aaron wants to do a React video, but she wanted to do it another way. But I let her know public domain because that would be legally more appropriate for her to do. So I gave her links to well, Dick Wolf and Strawberry Shortcake, specific ones, like when they talk about their wealth, which is on Strawberry Shortcake, of how rich I am and blah blah blah, I'm a millionaire, because that would be funny for a reaction video. But
Yeah, I know. I think on Drea's YouTube, she has some videos as well.
she
That
does. She has debunking videos. That's why I want to do some debunking on here too, but also some Pokemon stuff too, because Pokemon nerd. But
yeah, that was something that we had in an earlier version of episode 3, was kind of talking more about people like Drea who had left the group and were speaking out and having kind of like a little section on the whistleblowers. But unfortunately, we had to cut that for time. So episode 3 had so much other stuff in it. But I think it's really awesome. What you guys are all doing with speaking out, and even before being on the documentary, making YouTube videos and your blog posts and things like that.
like, yeah, I watched when I said yes to the series, and anyone who wants to see Drea's channel, so Dragonheart, she does a lot of debunking, like a lot of debunking of the Vanity Fair article with another ex-member, and then what else does she do? She just talks about her own experience too in debunking and whatever sources she has that gave her stuff from the inside. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool to see even just her stuff.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Like each and every one of you, had something important to contribute in terms of evidence to the doc. And it just goes to show like when you all team together, you're all working together, like you guys have a lot of evidence and it's awesome.
And we have been teaming up and working together. We still are, even behind the scenes. We are still working together, teaming up, and even seeing some new X members starting to speak up, which is great. And the more, the better.
I'm excited to hear about that. Yeah, I had, after the series came out for like 2 weeks, I was kind of like addicted to Reddit, just reading what everyone was saying and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was trying to keep up with like, has the documentary caused anyone to leave the group? And I kind of couldn't figure it out. So if you have more insight on that,
I have a lot of insight on that, sadly.
Yeah.
I don't know about leaving. I know a lot of people that have left are trying to go back in, and some have made it back in. So there isn't like a whole lot of great news on that. And if there are any that are leaving, I don't know of yet, and nor does anyone else.
Yeah.
So I can't confirm or deny on that, but I can say that there are those going back in, and there are trolls also going in there too for fun, just to see it and test the waters.
I've definitely seen that. I mean, Reddit, after the show came out, Reddit blew up. I'm sure you saw. There was like threads and threads of people on Reddit saying like, we want to do something about this and we're going to join the Facebook group. And that was really crazy to see all that. Cause for the whole time we were working on the show, our small team was finding all these things. And we were just like, this is so crazy and horrible. But like, we couldn't talk about it because we had to keep everything really, while we were working on the show, we wanted to keep everything confidential, obviously, because we didn't want any way to tip off Jeff and Shalia that we were working on the show or anything like that. So it was just so crazy after the show came out to have like the entire internet responding and giving their opinions on everything was just a surreal experience.
Well, even like on TikTok, a lot of people have made it, and like Let the Fresh Air, and Erin made it into there too. She's actually one of the ones who got an interview with an ex member, which was great to see because their story hadn't been told yet. So I highly recommend, and you can even see my interviews on there too, on Let the Fresh Air, and you'll even see my interview with Erin on here too. But yeah, I really like Let the Fresh Air, aka Erin, because yeah, maybe she's not widely known, but she does do her research, which I find important. I vetted both of the people that I was personally interviewed by, but I vetted them first before they ever interviewed me. And I made sure they had their bases covered, like, which we'll have on here too, a disclaimer, and we'll have it also on the bottom down below of disclaimer. And then if there's any social medias that you would like to have people follow you on, I will add that down there too. And then I'll have my social medias down there too, and information about this interview.
Yeah, I'm like more of a private person on social media, so I don't know if I would want.
You don't have to have any. You could just go, nope, there won't be anything under there then.
After the show, I started getting some follower requests, and I was like, I don't know if these are like TFU spies or not. Like I started getting parent, because we were very familiar from speaking with all of you guys and working on this for so long. Like we were kind of incognito. And then the show came out and all of our names are in the credits. And I was like, I don't know if I want TFU's army to come in.
They've already come for us. Like I blocked majority of the ones I could on TikTok, but I know I'm not going to get them all on YouTube. It's a free for all because they can touch me on here. But yeah, the most I can do is get rid of any of their comments when I see them come, because I know they already came on Fun Facts, Let the Fresh Air in, and she already had to take care of some of them too. I had forewarned her that they were absolutely going to come after her because she's done so much on TFU. And she's smaller. That's the only time they'll actually come after you is if you're smaller. I'm definitely smaller for YouTube. But yeah.
You guys are brave. Like when the show came out, I was like, yeah, like I said, I started to get a little paranoid, and I was like, I can't even imagine how you all feel all the time because it is a lot.
It is, but it makes it easier knowing that there is evidence backing everything we're saying. Even you can go, like even during Keely and I, our talk, you can go anywhere on the web and you'll find backup to everything we say. You can go to Dick Wolf, you can go to literally just straight to the public domain website of Twin Flames Universe, and you'll
Yep.
already see what we were saying is the truth.
Yeah. No,
You don't
it's true.
have to go that far just to see that we're telling the truth and
Yeah.
that we do, in fact, have evidence that has been talked about lots, not just seen some of, not all, some of, but there's evidence
Yeah.
for each claim.
It's true. I saw a lot of the evidence.
Yeah. And I do have, before we finish, let's see, though you might have already done this, but I'm going to ask it anyways, and you can say no if you didn't. I asked Morgan the same question, but I'm getting a feel for what each role was. But it said, were you a part of the initial pitch for Escaping Twin Flames on Netflix?
No, so yeah, I once I joined the show, the Netflix had already bought the show, basically.
Okay.
So, but Morgan, I mean, mostly Cecilia and Inbal, because it was after they had finished working on Seduced and they made the website for Seduced, I believe. That's when they started kind of hearing about TFU from some submissions, I believe that's correct. I hope that's correct. Yeah, I know Cecilia and Inbal and Morgan were looking into this for a long time before pitching it to Netflix and all of that. I became involved later. I'm so grateful that they hired me because it was just a really great project to work on, really fascinating, and getting to meet all of you, and it's been awesome.
Well, I'm grateful that you were a part of it too. And I'm glad I got to actually meet you in person since I literally only got like a short glimpse of you on
Yeah,
their Zoom meeting. That's literally what it was. It was, oh, this is Zoe.
yeah,
Because I had like Dana and a couple other people come in eventually. That was when they started really truly recording it. And then I
yeah,
actually allowed them to because there was multiple people there. But that was the only reason why I allowed it. And then eventually it was just the two of them, and then I would allow them. It took them a long time to be able to be allowed to interview
yeah,
me and do as we're
yeah.
doing now, recording.
I remember in that call with you, that was when we kind of learned that you were in the divine masculine healing groups. And
Yes.
that was a huge piece of the puzzle that when once you started telling us about that, we were like, oh my God, this needs to be part of the story. This is so important. So yeah, that once you kind of revealed that, and then we spoke to Angie and Keely about it too, we were like, oh my God, this is a big important part of the story. This has to be in the show.
Well, yeah, it's the biggest part of what they're doing,
Yeah.
like huge part, and they've been doing it for years, endlessly. And people have called them out since they first started doing it. That was the one before Angie and I, because we were in the same one, Angie and I, for Divine Feminine, Divine Masculine. But the first coupling happened before us, which I don't know which year it was. I believe it was 2019. No,
Mhm.
would have been like 2018 or 2019. It was before, far before. Yeah, it would have been 2018 because I did a year's worth of standing up for them on Twitter and a couple other social medias. So it would have been 2018 was the first one. I'm trying to think timeline. Yeah, 2018, because then 2020 is when the second coupling happened
Mhm.
that I was a part of. But 2018 would have been the first. 2019 is when Sarah Berman wrote her first article about
Mhm.
the first coupling.
Yeah.
But yeah, which funny enough, we'll have Sarah Berman on here too. I'm getting every perspective possible on.
Sarah's awesome. She's awesome.
I love Sarah. I got really close with her because her and I did so many Zoom calls, and just I didn't realize she was doing for an actual article for the third one. She
Mhm.
told me, but doesn't mean I remembered. And then she repeated it. But
Yeah.
yeah. So, and then she did that, and it came out literally the day after the docuseries that article came out.
Yeah. I saw
But
that one. I was like, yes. This is awesome.
it was great timing though. But yeah, and then Cecilia and Inbal should be on here too at some point. I don't know. We're still working on scheduling that. And then
Talking to them together or separately?
I want to do separate.
Nice.
There's
Yeah.
something about separate talking because I've gotten perspective from you that I didn't expect, which is great. And Morgan, I got perspective I didn't expect. Sometimes you guys are saying the same thing, but sometimes you're not. And
Yeah.
I like to have that separate idea and keeping kind of that legal idea too, because I am purposely using at least the BTS Escaping Twin Flames as evidence on top of the evidence that's there. This is background evidence.
Yeah.
And for people just to learn about storytelling too. So there's double reasons, but my main reason is that. Yeah, just so you know too. So
Yeah. No, it's great. I've never, like I said, I've never been interviewed about anything I've ever worked on. So this is exciting for me
yeah.
because like my friends and family are sick of hearing about this from me at this point.
Well, that's okay. There's going to be a lot of people, even though I don't have that many followers, I think, especially because of my first post with Keely, I think more people are going to be drawn in to listen to this behind the scenes. She doesn't take part in the behind the scenes of Escaping from Flames. We cover Take Back Your Life.
Oh,
But
great. Yeah, I saw she has an event with Yanya coming up. That's cool.
correct, she does. By the time this is posted, it will already have passed. But yeah, that's what we talked about. And when I am talking with ex members, it's not going to necessarily be a behind the scenes unless they want it to be. Then it will absolutely be. But they're the ones who have to decide that. But it's going to be whatever topic or thing we're going to talk about. If it's cult, it's cult. If it's not, it's not. Keely chose to do cult and the book,
Mhm.
so it's totally her choice.
Oh, awesome. Well,
But yeah,
I'm excited to watch all your episodes.
thank you. I'm excited about all these filmings. I am going to be doing debunking, and like I said, Pokemon.
Yeah.
And also, my tagline, which I'll just say, is "Embrace your truth, tell your story," so that we have that recorded.
Yeah.
But yeah,